What happens when Hollywood royalty crosses paths with real royalty on live television and everything suddenly goes off the rails? Buckle up, because what unfolded on Today with Jenna and Friends left viewers questioning everything they thought they knew about celebrity interviews. Before we get into this shocking encounter, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because trust me, this is one you're going to want to talk about. The morning began like any other at the NBC studios in New York. Jenna Bush-Hager was going over her notes one last time, her familiar warm smile hiding the slight nervous energy she always felt before major interviews. Today's guest was Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, who was making the rounds to promote her latest venture. On paper, it looked like a standard promotional appearance. In reality, it was about to turn into anything but routine. "Good morning everyone and welcome back to Today with Jenna and Friends," Jenna said, her voice carrying its usual friendly tone as she settled into her chair across from Meghan. "I'm here with Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, who's joining us to talk about her exciting new projects." "Meghan, thank you so much for being here." Meghan, dressed flawlessly in a cream-colored blazer that reflected the studio lights just right, returned a polished smile. "Thank you for having me, Jenny. It's always nice to connect with your audience." From the very beginning, though, something felt different. Meghan's usual calm, practiced composure seemed more guarded. Her answers were careful, almost restrained, as if she were preparing herself for something. Jenny, an experienced interviewer, noticed the shift immediately. "So let's talk about what you've been working on lately," Jenna continued, leaning in slightly. "You've been involved in some really meaningful projects. What's been driving your passion behind this work?" For just a split second, Meghan's eyes flickered before she launched into what sounded like a well-prepared response. "Well, Jenny, I believe that when you're given a platform, you have a responsibility to use it for good. If you have opportunities, you should try to lift others up." There was something about the way she stressed certain words that made Jenna hesitate. The small studio audience seemed to sense it too. Even the crew, usually invisible in their professionalism, exchanged quick glances. "That's lovely," Jenna said, though her instincts were now fully alert. "And speaking of platforms, you've definitely had to navigate some complicated situations over the past few years. How do you personally deal with the scrutiny that comes with being so visible, especially when it feels unfair or inaccurate?" The question lingered in the air just a moment too long. Meghan's smile faded slightly, and when she spoke again, there was a sharpness in her voice that hadn't been there before. "You know, Jenny, I find it interesting that we so often ask women how they handle scrutiny instead of asking why that scrutiny exists in the first place." Her tone stayed calm, but there was unmistakable strength underneath. "Why is it that when a woman speaks up for herself or her family, it's labeled as controversial, but when others behave far worse, it's treated like just another normal day?" Jenna blinked, clearly not expecting the conversation to take this direction. The mood in the studio shifted instantly. This wasn't following the planned script, and everyone could feel it. "I think that's a fair observation," Jenna said carefully, trying to guide things back. "I was really asking about your personal coping strategies. How you stay grounded when what?" Meghan cut in, her voice still controlled but growing more intense. "When people invent stories about me that have nothing to do with reality? When every action I take is picked apart and twisted to fit someone else's narrative? Is that what you mean by staying grounded?" The studio went completely quiet, aside from the low hum of the cameras. Jenna didn't retreat, but her tone became more direct. "Meghan, I understand there have been difficulties, but surely you knew that marrying into the royal family would bring intense media attention. Wasn't that something you expected?" "Expected media attention?" Meghan replied, her voice rising just enough to signal a turning point. "Yes. Expected lies, manipulation, and an organized effort to destroy my character? No. That's not media attention, Jenny. That's something else." The audience was fully locked in now. Phones discreetly appeared as people realized they were witnessing an unscripted television moment. Social media was almost certainly lighting up in real time. "But Meghan," Jenna pressed, her journalistic side taking over. Don't you think there is a difference between legitimate criticism and what you're describing? Some coverage is critical, but isn't it a part of being a public figure? Something in Meghan cracked. When she spoke again, her voice carried a passion that had clearly been held back for a long time. Legitimate criticism? Is it legitimate when my children's heritage is questioned? When false stories are printed saying I made someone cry when the opposite happened? When I'm labeled difficult and demanding for asking that my family be protected from racist abuse? Her eyes were blazing now. So tell me, Jenny, when does legitimate criticism turn into targeted harassment? The question hit the room like a shockwave. Jenny took a deep breath. Those are serious claims, Meghan. Are you saying the British press carried out a deliberate campaign against you? I'm not accusing, Meghan replied steadily. I'm stating facts. And there is proof. Receipts for every lie, every coordinated hit, every attempt to silence me when I tried to defend myself and my family. The tension was almost unbearable. Jenny realized this was no longer a promotional interview. It was becoming an explosive, unscripted tell-all. When you say receipts, Jenna asked, what exactly do you mean? Meghan leaned forward, locking eyes with her. Text messages. Emails. Recorded conversations. Documented proof that negative stories were planted while I was blocked from correcting the record. Jury saying there was coordination? Jenny asked. Yes, Meghan answered without hesitation. Certain members of the royal household fed information to specific reporters. Stories were released to overshadow positive moments for Harry and me. These wasn't random. These are very serious accusations, Jenna said. Are you ready to support them? It was systematic, Meghan replied firmly. And the most painful part is that it wasn't just outsiders. It was people we trusted. People who smiled at us while damaging us behind closed doors. Emotion flooded her voice now, raw and unfiltered. Jenny noticed tears forming, but also something like relief. Can you give one clear example? Jenny asked gently. Meghan took a breath. The story about me making Catherine cry before my wedding. That story was planted, and it was completely false. Catherine made me cry. When I asked for the truth to be corrected, I was told it was better to stay quiet. Gasps rippled through the audience. Jury saying the press knowingly reported the opposite? Jenny asked. That's exactly what I'm saying, Meghan replied. And I was told protecting her image mattered more than telling the truth about me. Jenny felt the weight of the moment. This was no longer gossip. This was a royal family member making explosive statements live on American television. My mental health didn't matter, Meghan continued, her voice shaking. When I asked for help because I was having thoughts of self-harm, I was told it wouldn't look good for the institution. The studio froze. I was told to think about appearances, Meghan said through tears. Not about my life. Jenna's voice softened. Meghan, maybe we should pause. No, Meghan said firmly. I've been silent long enough. What about my children? What about my safety? She turned to the camera. When conversations happen about how dark your child's skin might be, about whether they belong, that's where I draw the line. The audience audibly gasped. You're saying family members discussed your children's skin color? Jenny asked. Yes, Meghan said coldly. And that's why we left. To protect our children's sense of worth. Jenny knew history was being made. Are you prepared for the reaction this will cause? I've been preparing for this for years, Meghan replied. Every time I was silenced, it led to this moment. When asked if she would release evidence, Meghan answered calmly. Yes. Because I'm done being the scapegoat. Her final message was clear. Speaking your truth isn't an attack. It's survival. When asked about regrets, she paused. Only that I didn't speak sooner. As the cameras stopped, silence filled the studio. Meghan stood, shook Jenna's hand, and said quietly, "Thank you for letting me speak." And with that, she walked off, leaving behind a moment that would be talked about for years.